Welcome to The Point. I am John Fugelsang, guest hosting yet again. We're delighted to have you here. And on behalf of everyone here at The Point and the Young Turks, I think we'd all like to congratulate Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes on the successful completion of their 5-year contract. We have 3 great points on the show this week. The first is going to be from conservative commentator Lee Doren on the popular How the World Works YouTube channel, explaining how the recent Supreme Court decision on Obamacare will actually hurt Democrats. And I want to talk about that. By the way, I think you can call the Affordable Care Act Obamacare as long as you also call Social Security FDR care, Medicare LBJ care, and tax cuts for rich guys who don't need it W care. We're also going to be talking about the controversial law banning the sale of foie gras in California. If you don't know what foie gras is, you're in for quite a surprise, and I bet you'll be on the side of the ban by the time the segment's over. And for our final point, we will talk about the latest salvo in the Texas Republican Party's efforts to outlaw brainwave activity in children. What I'm talking about there, and I'll get into it really briefly to kick the show off, the Texas GOP has written something into their platform. They've said, we oppose the teaching of higher order thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and similar programs that are simply a relabeling of outcome-based education which focus on behavior modification and have the purpose of challenging a student's fixed beliefs and undermining parental authority. Now, again, this is the Texas GOP putting this in their platform. They want to ban critical thinking skills because it challenges the students' fixed beliefs, which means that, your beliefs you come to school with should never be challenged. School exists to reinforce your beliefs, and if you're a child, of course, we're talking about the beliefs of your parents they've instilled in you, and that critical thinking undermines parental authority. Now, after this came out, they've retracted that paragraph and said they never meant to put that paragraph in their platform. But I say at least you admitted it, because, Texas GOP, you're exactly right. Critical thinking does undermine parental authority. It undermines all authority. That's why it's called critical thinking. And if it wasn't for critical thinking, we all would still be British subjects. They do want to keep in the platform, they call for abstinence-only sex ed, which really works great. Just ask Levi Johnston. They want to privatize Social Security, which is a great way of saying, have some cat food, Grandma. The platform calls for opposing the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, because overseas slave labor makes some really cheap, affordable cowboy hats. They want to repeal the minimum wage, corporate punishment in schools, not allow gay people to serve in the military, opposing ACORN, which hasn't existed in 2 years, Texas GOP, repealing the 16th Amendment, getting rid of the whole national income tax, only having a sales tax, which hurts the 99% and the poor folks, and repealing the Voting Rights Act, which they brilliantly call the Voter Rights Act. But critical thinking, that's bad. Now, we'll get to this in detail, but I would like to say that this calls to mind the time that the Texas textbooks banned all mention of Thomas Jefferson, and then after the outcry, they put in one single mention of Thomas Jefferson in all Texas textbooks, only to say that Jefferson is actually Kenyan. Okay, let's get started on the show. Today's panel, I've hosted this show a bunch of times. I don't think I've ever been this excited about the assemblage of humanity we have. Deborah Wilson is an actress and comedian. You know her from 8 seasons on Mad TV and numerous film roles, including Avatar. She's also an animal rights activist and animal rights advocate and social activist. The brilliant Rick Ungar blogs about healthcare and other political issues for Forbes magazine and makes frequent appearances as a liberal voice on a number of Fox News programs, including Sean Hannity, Fred Flintstone's Body Double. And Alexis Garcia is a producer with the right-leaning, that's fair to say, right-leaning online news and commentary network PJTV, as well as a columnist for Fox News Latino. And yet somehow I suspect we're going to find more common ground than we thought we'd have today. Okay, let's take a look at our first point video, since we don't use prompter here. Thank you, Uncle Jank. This comes from one of my favorite conservatives on YouTube. This is Lee Doren. Take a look.
Hey everyone, my name is Lee Doren and I host the YouTube channel How the World Works. Now I could talk about the Supreme Court's decision on Obamacare for hours, but in this video I'm only going to focus on the short-term political implications of Justice Roberts' majority opinion on the individual mandate. Now if you're not familiar, the individual mandate forces individuals to purchase a private product, in this case health insurance, or pay a penalty. And Chief Justice Roberts wrote in the majority opinion that it is unconstitutional under the Commerce Clause, that it is unconstitutional under the Necessary and Proper Clause, and that it is constitutional as a tax. So what does that mean, and why is it important going towards November? Well, it means that Barack Obama violated his #1 campaign promise not to raise taxes on people making less than $250,000 a year, and any Democrats who support Obamacare also support raising taxes. In fact, arguably the largest tax increase in United States history. That can only help Republicans. So instead of Democrats simply getting a massive expansion of big government, many of them are going to be nailed as tax increasers this November, and Republicans may win many races as a result, and Barack Obama may also lose the presidency. And that's how the world works.
Hopefully, in a brave new world, we'll bring back pre-existing conditions for children. Now, thank you very much, Lee Doren. I do watch your videos all the time, and I again really thank you for submitting that video, especially because you're not going to like the horrible things I say about you in 2 minutes. So I want to begin this
If
with
I don't
Rick.
get there first.
No, and all due respect to Lee, but hang on, Rick. Let me begin with you. Is Mr. Doren right? Is John Roberts so diabolically clever that he ruled in favor of Obama because he knew that by calling the mandate a tax, he would hand the presidency to Governor Romney, who did the same damn thing in Massachusetts?
You know what? He's clever, but I'm not sure he's that clever. I'll tell you what absolutely amazes me, and people are buying it, and that just disturbs me. This is like saying that despite the fact that 4 of the 9 justices actually said it wasn't a tax. They actually took some serious shots at John Roberts for calling it a tax and finding a way to make it constitutional that way. They think that Barack Obama had a crystal ball 2 years ago, and he said, you know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen? They're going to find it constitutional by calling it a tax. I don't want anybody to know that, so I'm going to lie. I'm going to say it's a penalty, because he knew this was coming. How unbelievably stupid are these people?
Well, I think it's quite
They're
believable.
pretty stupid.
Yeah, and again, it's not a
hope you don't
tax.
think that.
It's not a tax. There's a difference between a tax and a penalty. The bottom line is, and I think people, especially now, are arguing the vernacular of what it is and using that theoretically to make repercussions, to have theoretical repercussions. Because you know what? We're in such a fear state. We've been in a fear state for a number of years. For a couple of administrations, we've been in a fear state, and that fear says we don't know the particulars, and we'll let people in government discuss those particulars, and we'll sit there and we'll pretend that we know what we're talking about, but we want to know the ramifications and how it affects us. And until we know specifically, as an American people, individuals as well, we're going to be fear mongers about this.
In fairness, pretending you know what you talk about is how I make a living. But I want to go to Alexis on this, because
Don't we all?
What I find fascinating about this debate is that it wasn't a liberal health care plan. It was drafted by conservatives in the Heritage Foundation, pitched by conservatives. A conservative Governor Romney made it law in Massachusetts, and now conservatives are furious that this Democratic president made this conservative policy law. But isn't it the essence of conservatism, this so-called tax? It's a tax on freeloaders, if anything. It's the Republican ideal of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're not responsible. We're not going to pay for your health care costs when you uninsured guys go to the emergency room. Alexis, is it fair to characterize it that way?
I think so. And I think going back to a little bit what Lee was saying, I think short term, yes, this is a victory for the president. And, I think Republicans are trying to package this as the largest tax increase, but I think it kind of goes beyond that. I think it's a little bit too in the weeds. I mean, the talk about taxes, that was a footnote in the slip opinion. I mean, it's very detailed and not straightforward, but I think eventually what is going to be, I think, sort of the problem with this bill is that it's not, and you're right, we don't really know how this is going to play out because we haven't really done it on this scale, but I think what you're going to start seeing, and I think what the message should be for Republicans out there, is this isn't going to make it more affordable. We've seen premiums go up. Kaiser Health Foundation, which by no means is a conservative foundation, it's gone up 9% in the last 2 years already.
Only 1.5% of it, at worst estimates, attributable to the new law.
So I think instead of pushing for taxes, I think what's really going to hit people is when they start getting those notices in the mail saying your premiums are going up, which
and
we
that's
don't
the question
really know
is,
yet.
Any of you know
what's
how
gonna
much
happen.
the tax adds up to, by the way?
Please.
$27 billion over 10 years. That's the largest tax in history on the middle class.
And in fairness, in the state of Massachusetts,
$2.7 billion a year.
In the state of Massachusetts, this tax, this penalty, affected less than 1% of households.
Absolutely right. And by the way, that's what it's going to be national.
I do believe they were saying this was only affecting 6%.
Right. However, I think
only
Justice Roberts did a really brilliant triangulation.
Yes, he did.
He knew he had to save his legacy. He couldn't have it be this hack right-wing court after Citizens United, Bush v. Gore, and he had to do something for the people. But he did put in this tax language, I thought, as some red meat to his base, try to keep himself on Grover Norquist's Christmas card list, if possible, and not completely alienate the folks who put him in power in the first place.
He did more than put in red meat. he actually brilliantly set the stage for his agenda for years to come.
Indeed.
This was amazing. I mean, not to get too into the weeds lawyer style, right? But this may have been the greatest political decision since Marbury v. Madison.
Politically,
where the Supreme Court, going back to our beginnings, basically set up the agenda that gave the Supreme Court the power they have, and then to make it all work, they let the other side win. That's exactly what's happened here.
And it's a very good point. Now, as far as Mr. Lee Doren, who I do thank again for submitting the video, I watch his stuff all the time, and I always enjoy watching his stuff because it's always like, okay, Lee Doren, you're a very smart conservative. You have your act together, you know what you're saying, and you're actually saying some challenging things that make sense, and you're making Democrats uncomfortable. That's good. And oh, you're kind of Ayn Randian, but I get the lot. No, you're full of shit. Every time I watch him, it always reaches, Lee Doren, you're full of shit, because he starts off really nice. Yeah, the tax business. Okay, it's not a tax under the Commerce Clause. That's true. That it's construed as a tax. Again, it was Obama's Solicitor General who said that, not the president. Violated his promise of no taxes on the middle class. I don't think I would call this a tax on the middle class, but the president did run against a mandate. He said making people buy health insurance to solve the problem is like making the homeless buy houses. So fair, and then he takes the one-way bus to Crazy Town. Sorry, but you did it on a monorail, Lee. Any Democrat who supports it supports taxes. Not true. This is a freeloader tax. Now, the taxes that are in the bill, if you go to PolitiFact out there, folks, you'll see exactly what the tax increases are. They're all to generate revenue. They're mostly on the wealthy. There's a 10% excise tax on indoor tanning services, so we know why Speaker Boehner's so upset. And that's an offense to all orange Americans. But generally speaking, these are taxes on an excise tax on manufacturers and importers of certain medical devices, on pharmaceutical manufacturers, and we do feel sorry for them. They've had it tough for a long time, haven't they?
Tragic.
Medicare payroll taxes increased 0.9 percentage points for people with incomes over $200,000 or a $250,000 for couples filing jointly. So really, essentially, Mitt Romney's argument that it's a tax would have to be, it's not when I do it, it is when you do it. But as of this week, it's no longer Romney's argument.
Right.
Well, I mean, their campaign has essentially come out and said it is a penalty. But I mean, what the Roberts decision did was what I don't think anybody could have done is unite Tea Party and that whole conservative bastion behind Mitt Romney. I mean, the fundraising that he's been able to generate.
But it's hypocrisy.
But I think what's interesting about this.
Today?
I don't think he blew it. I mean, I think they've been put in a good position where they can argue what they're going to do. I don't think it's going to be the defining issue of 2012. But I will say one of the interesting things I thought about that opinion was the whole Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
And I think it will be interesting to see as these states decide to opt out.
Take it.
And my thing is,
If that raises taxes.
I would really like to see the argument, instead of it being such a heavy-duty political argument when it comes to the vernacular and the language and the law and the Constitution, is how it might affect Americans daily.
Well,
how the possibilities of how this would affect Americans daily,
and
as
the
in
president,
healthcare.
And the president hasn't made that case effectively enough.
No.
I know,
Now,
and that's what I would like to see, the more of that, because, you know, to a certain extent, I'm not saying any of this is a smokescreen. It's very valid. The whole argument is valid. The controversy is valid. The back and forth is valid. Absolutely. But Americans want to know, individuals, families, want to know how it's going to affect them as far as their health care is concerned.
Well, the notion that it's the largest tax increase in history is a lie. It was a pants on fire lie on PolitiFact.
Yeah,
It really,
insane.
It's completely insane. And it's, again, in
It's
Massachusetts.
even an overreach for the Republicans.
Yeah, and in Massachusetts, it affected, again, less than 1% of households. Now, I do think that Governor Romney's in a bit of a position that John Kerry was in 2004. Your number one wedge issue, but you don't got the wedge. In 2004, it was Iraq, which Kerry voted for. Now it's the Affordable Care Act, which is really Romney Care. He did it first. It's the most successful thing he did as governor of Massachusetts, and he has to run away from it. I think the governor would be much better served to stand his ground, say, look, man, yeah, I did it, but I believe in states' rights, not imposing it on the entire. No, if he takes the states' rights argument, he'll speak to the base and say, we did it there, you shouldn't make it national,
I agree,
and
but I think
own
He
it.
could have done it. He could have done that. I agree with you.
I
do you
think he
think?
needs to stick with the jobs and economy.
Yeah, he's got to stay away from it.
I mean,
Is that why Eric Fernstrom, my old buddy, full disclosure, I was the guy on CNN who asked Eric Fernstrom the question that led to the Etch-a-Sketch controversy.
Were you really?
So that was me. So I go back with this guy,
Nice.
and now you've got a lot of Republicans calling for Mr. Fernstrom's head, including Mr. Murdoch, who said Mitt's got to fire all of his people. But he's the one who came out and said that it's not a tax.
penalty.
Yes, he did.
And
No,
again,
he said it's not a tax.
it's not a tax, exactly. It's a penalty.
But no, but he did agree. What he specifically did, you're right. He never said that word, except that when Chuck Todd said, "Well, is it a fine? Is it it a penalty? He went, yeah.
And every time Eric Fernstrom tells the truth, Republicans go
Yeah,
nuts.
they go nuts.
So,
and I am interested to see though, because with this whole Medicaid thing, I think a lot of states are going to opt out, and I think you're going to see
I
a
think they
mass of
won't.
people.
Not gonna happen.
I think
Yeah, I
they
don't
I
think
think
they will.
Can I
you
tell
might
you
see
why?
a mass of
Can I
people
tell you
enter the
why?
market, which
I'm going to tell you why. Here's the reason. Look, there's certainly Republican governors are going to make the noises they're making. But you know what the deal is? 3 years, the federal government pays 100% of it. 2 years past that,
They do
95%. For the rest of time, 90%. Now, if you opt out of it, what you're basically doing is taking the federal taxes your people are paying in your state, and it's going to the state next door. That's not good politics. People are going to notice, well, wait a second, why am I paying and everybody else is getting it? So they can rattle their sabers all they want. They're going to lose elections if they don't opt into it.
unless they can kill it before it starts helping people.
That's different.
And that's
They
the
could
whole
kill it
challenge.
first.
If
That
they can
could
kill it
happen.
before it
Which
helps
could
anyone. Now,
happen.
I think when Mitt Romney said this is going to be $500 billion a year, is that a number he pulled out of his magic underwear?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in terms
Who
of saying,
knows for sure?
well, he said it was going to be $500 billion in Medicare
And
cuts.
that's a fear-mongering theory.
Yeah.
Exactly, because correct me if I'm wrong.
There
You're the
are
expert.
500 million in
500
Medicare
billion,
cuts.
but it's not.
Or billion.
It's in cuts to potential
It's
future
savings.
spending
It's not-
over the next 10 years.
Not one benefit was ever taken away in this law.
Nope.
I mean, not even a fraction of
They
a benefit.
shaved away money that was expected to be
Exactly.
added to the Medicare benefits.
Yes.
The Medicare benefits
And they
over the
found
next
ways
10
to make
years.
it more efficient. That hopefully will work.
I want this to work, but I just think that I don't know. I'm very skeptical that this is actually going to save money. You had a CMS study saying this is going to add what 478 billion.
But reduce the deficit.
But
120 billion. reducing
again,
the
we
deficit.
don't know what's going to happen. But
Right, we
I'm
don't
very
know.
skeptical that this is actually going
And
to
I
bring rates down.
agree with you, because I would have supported the same kind of socialist healthcare enjoyed by all, and I mean all of our capitalist allies, single payer.
But this
Medicare
is-
for all,
this is
which the
on the
president,
way.
by the way, this president could have signed a one-page executive order authorizing Medicare for all, and we would have single payer
No,
like
he
all of our
couldn't have.
allies.
He
do.
really couldn't have.
Well, he wouldn't be reelected.
Well, he couldn't have done it. I can give you 1,000 reasons why it wouldn't have worked.
Can Mitt Romney ever have this repealed on day one? I know he really
No.
wants to bring back pre-existing
No, I
conditions,
don't.
but how is Mitt Romney ever going to get 60 votes in the Senate?
Even if he wants to, I don't think it's
The big pitch out today is that if the Republicans take the Senate back, they can do it on reconciliation with 51 votes. Even that's not true. What they can do, and what they're pitching is, we can basically kill the tax. Therefore, the bill becomes unconstitutional.
Right.
But if they were to kill the tax, what they can't do with just 51 votes is kill pre-existing insurance companies having to cover
things
it.
people like.
So what they're going to, it's worse than that, because what they'd be doing is saying to the insurance companies, we've just taken away the mandate. So people don't have to buy, but guess what? You still have to sell insurance to everybody who's sick.
Right? Yeah.
That's gonna.
Well,
It's not financially.
Can't be done.
tenable, yeah.
we're going to move on to the next topic, but Lee Doren, I thank you again for submitting the video. I want to say that, I'm a fan. If I ever meet you, I'd love to buy you a drink, and it's great to live in a country, or a world rather, where Reaganomics worked and George W. Bush's presidency never happened. It's the long, hard, ugly story of Obamacare versus Republican can't care less. We want to know what you think, however, and you mentioned the reconciliation vote. That's another area we can criticize the president, because what did they say? We can't have a public option because that would require reconciliation, and we
That's a
won't do that.
long discussion.
And then what did they do? They went and passed the Republican plan using reconciliation,
Yeah.
so we can make fun of both sides on this one. But we want to know what you think. Please give us your comments. Be as angry as possible, because that's classy. Girls like it. We'll be right back with more right after this. Welcome back to The Point, and right now, an in-depth discussion on the divorce of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes is on another news channel. So our
was
next
gonna
point
have
is
to
about
go.
a newly implemented law here in the beautiful state of California. I'm going to show you two videos here. First, a news report on the Foie Gras controversy, and then a brief little clip showing exactly what foie gras entails. Take a look.
In California, this is the last night you'll be able to order the delicacy foie gras.
Foie gras, that buttery stuff made from the fattened livers of ducks and geese, is illegal in California starting tomorrow. Animal cruelty activists are in a flap. In order to make foie gras, ducks and geese are force-fed cornmeal to make their livers grow 10 times their normal size.
It's messed up. I mean, honestly, when you think about like what foie gras is, it's kind of the pinnacle of human arrogance.
Okay, Deborah Wilson, why a ban on foie gras?
Why not a ban? First of all, when it comes to cornmeal, even though they say it, and they're giving you the information, they're saying that they force feed them with, cruelly force feed them with corn grain. The bottom line is ducks and geese, it is not compatible with their system. So the reason their livers get that big is because they become enlarged based on disease. So their livers are infected and diseased, and that's what makes it malleable. And so the cruelty factor has taken it to a new level when you're force feeding an animal, number one, with a steel pipe down its throat, because it does damage to the gullet, number
8
one.
to 12 inches long of a steel or plastic tube.
And number two, being force fed a food that is not natural to that animal.
It's a high-fat, high-carbohydrate corn mash that's pumped through the tube and into the esophagus by means of a pneumatic pump. At the end of the force-feeding period, each 10-pound duck is forced to consume an amount that for a 175-pound adult human would be equivalent to 44 pounds of pasta a day.
So then they can't walk properly. Their bodies are bloated so much that they can't walk properly. Their legs become infected, and on top of the liver becoming affected by disease. So you're basically saying, let's take this animal and use it no more than its liver. So this animal has no value to us other than that liver. So let's disease it and let's make it heavy. Let it not have the opportunity to walk. So we don't care about the pre-existing conditions around it. We don't care the dirty, the filth, the squalor.
Exactly.
Let's just take that so we can kill it and then just use the liver.
And again, the rest of the duck is
whatever.
thrown out and the liver becomes a delicacy for what I call a really nice, lovely, evolved, rich Epicurean fucks. And no disrespect to rich Epicurean fucks, but now here's the thing. Obviously, does anyone here have a problem with the ban? Is it government overreach?
I want to ask
you
myself
guys.
for having tasted this stuff.
Well, hang on. But there now. Here's the biggest three critiques we get on this. Number one, they say ducks have no gag reflex. I don't want to think about how you find that out, dudes.
Yeah.
But and number two, that these animals have to gorge themselves anyway for a long migration. But as Deborah pointed out, this is not the kind of food they gorge themselves on.
No.
And number three, this is an example of government overreach. Alexis, any thoughts?
Well, I say, my inner Ron Swanson just wants to say, give me all the eggs and bacon. But I think the fact matters. This was passed through a vote, I believe, in the state. I think the only issue that I have with the law, and I think Chicago tried a similar ban in 2006, but there seems to be a lot of problems with the law and how they implement it, because it doesn't seem the law is very clear. A lot of restaurant owners, there are some loopholes with it. As far as they're finding ways to get it, they can't sell it. So if you obtain it and bring it to a restaurant. They
exactly.
Can,
So
I think some restaurants even charge you like $20 for the cracker to serve it on. But I'm very vain. I'm very much aware of what I put in my body. So I don't have a problem with the ban, especially since voters did have a say in it.
Is this not?
I think the law needs to be clarified, because it doesn't seem like there's a way to actually enforce this.
Could one not say this is an example of the nanny state meddling in our lives, and if you don't want foie gras, don't have it?
No. They're not met. First of all, if you watch that film, did those ducks look happy?
Well,
they really didn't look like they were enjoying the experience.
We're talking about intended cruelty.
And then let's unpack that statement and go to
let's
unpack that statement and talk about other unhappy animals that we consume for fun.
And we shouldn't.
Like veal.
Right.
I don't. And it's not, we're not saying that veal is okay. No one is saying that veal is okay. We're saying that we haven't gotten to legislation in order to do something about that. And especially with people who are animal advocates and people for the Humane Society of the United States, it's small baby steps. We're trying to make it as palatable as possible to a certain extent.
Exactly.
Without overriding the situation like PETA, so that we don't get the opportunity to really make minds think about what they're doing and make decisions that are more conscious.
So you're a
society.
vegan, right? You're a vegan who favors a more incremental approach than PETA might advocate.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's my point of view on it. Now, I have this fight with my vegan friends all the time, and I have plenty, and I go to vegan restaurants. I say that I'm a vegetarian 25 days of the month. I'd like to be less. I'm trying to be just fish. I'm trying to be better all the time. And I'm vegan. I try to be vegan like 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay.
And it feels good. It's a great way to be. And I think that an approach like that, the eat less meat movement, is much more palatable to carnivores. You come on and say veganism, Americans will give up their religion before they give up comfort food. And I do think it's going to have to be incremental steps. You want to help the rainforest, you want to make Paul McCartney happy, you want to save your colon, eat less meat. But now veal is undeniably cruel.
Absolutely.
There are those who think that cruelty to mammals is worse than cruelty to birds. But it's a messaging issue, I think. Gay marriage never would have been as popular as it's become if they hadn't begun reframing it as marriage equality. If we can start calling veal torture baby cow, wouldn't that be the thing that
I
wakes people
disagree.
up?
I disagree. And the reason I say that is because I don't think Americans are so stupid that you have to go that limit. I think what we need to do is start putting real things on the table, real issues on the table, real looks at things on the table, real videos on the table, and call it for what it really is, as opposed to trying to make the language palatable. I think fuck the palatable language, the same way that if a situation goes down with your
Not
child.
not palatable language, more efficient language. Veal is a nice, vague term. It doesn't sound like cow baby, it's veal.
I completely get where you're coming from. But at the same time, I believe that when we make the language softer, we think we're telling...
I'm saying blunter language is called for.
I'm saying it should be called veal. I don't think it should be called, little baby cow. I don't think we should make, I think it's softer language. I think we should know what veal is, how it's made, and how it's done so that people can really take a good look at what it is. Because why people have been
They
used
never
to
know
veal
until they see it on a menu.
That's true. That's true. But the bottom line, it's not like this is new. It's not like this is all of a sudden coming up where we're recognizing this. We all know what it is. And because we've always known what it is, and our parents have known what it is, and our children know what it is, and it's been in society for a long time, we need to address it for what society knows it is,
right,
and then show what the real deal is with the thing we've always been used to and familiar with.
I want to go back to the government overreach thing.
I
really do.
I do too, because we saw this happen a few years ago in California with legislation about the treatment of chickens, you'll recall, which upset a lot of people as well.
You know what? If people need to be told by government not to treat animals in this way, fine. That's not government overreach. That's controlling people.
And isn't government we the people?
Well, yeah,
I mean, isn't this an example of us setting standards?
We
for our
don't
own
mind when
community?
government tells us not to do that to
and
each
it
other.
was voted in. So this wasn't a fascist movement where it was just done. This was voted in. This is a law now.
I wouldn't
This is
care
an
if it
actual
wasn't.
law.
Right, well, I wouldn't either. But however, I think people who are champions of individual liberty would. And again, some animal abuse is more acceptable than others. If we started
I
having...
think none is.
Well, I'm with you, but if we started saying, okay, here's bald eagle bacon. People wouldn't want to have bald eagle bacon, but turkey bacon,
but that's only because
fine.
of the concept of the eagle representing our country.
Well, of course,
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
of
And so
course.
everything is all this theory, and no one wants it. As long as it's wrapped in plastic and as long as it's put on a plate, nobody really thinks about it.
I'll
No
say
one
something.
wants to think
I'll say
about
something in defense of that. Look, people do eat meat. I'm not a hunter, but my attitude is, if you are a hunter, if you're going to eat what you kill, I kind of get that. If you're doing
Of course, I do too.
If you're going to put it on your wall, you're sick.
We're talking about doing things in a humane way. So
Right.
when we're talking about vegans that are real true vegans to what they do, it's not about telling people how to eat or what to do with their body. It's about putting information out there and letting them make the decision. And then if it is cruel, if you still have all that information and the process of what you do with your company or corporation is cruel, that's where education really needs to come in, and that's where the emphasis is. And did you know that factory farming processes cause more harm to the ecosystem than cars and buses combined?
And I'm glad you said that next, because this is one of my problems with liberals, okay? And I love my liberals, but when they come out and talk about cars are so bad, cow farming causes just as many emissions
Absolutely.
as cars.
More.
And
Go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, and I think you and I had this discussion earlier off camera, but
You did?
we did. But yeah, I would like to see a market solution to this because I am pro-market, but I think it does go a long way to educating people about where their food comes from and how it's treated, and I don't think that happens enough. And
is this because the agriculture lobby is so strong? I mean, most Americans
I
don't
think
know
it's
that.
just. I just think it's the hustle. I mean, whoever really stops to think about where their food comes from. But I think when you have a lifestyle change like you were talking about, it takes a lot of time to, make that a part of your life. And I think anyway, I mean, yeah, it's great that we have a law. I don't know how effective it will be actually solving the problem, but I think the only way you'll have lasting change is getting people educated and getting people to buy into, this
No,
is
you're right.
this
And again,
is
it's like drugs. People who want foie gras will get foie gras in California
Absolutely.
still.
And it's a slippery slope also because in today's economy, fast food is marketed for everyone. Fast food is marketed 99-cent meals at Taco
It's
Bell
marketed
and all
not
that.
for everyone.
And
It's marketed for poor people. And it's marketed for
I mean,
lower
what does it
middle
say
income.
But it's still
big meal.
marketed in general towards an economy because you know what? When it comes to these restaurants, whether it's poor, whether it's black, whether it's Latino, whether it's with low income, income, green is still green to a corporation.
Exactly.
And so they're putting out these meals, and what they're doing is they're doing the smoke and mirrors with, you can go to places like McDonald's and you can get a salad, but we know that you're going to get a burger with the salad. We know you're going to get fries somewhere along the line. We know you're going to get a milkshake.
Right.
We know that rainforests
And we
have
know
been
that
cut
very
down for corporations so that they can graze cattle over in South America. So we know this.
And that very little of that stuff is actually food. And this is the part where I tell everyone watching needs to watch Forks and Knives. You need to see Jerry Garcia's widow's excellent film,
Food Inc.
Food Inc. Yeah,
As
check
Alexis
out-
was saying earlier.
And the Future of Food, made by Jerry Garcia's widow, which is a great film about it, where I learned that we used to have hundreds of slaughterhouses in this country. Now we have less than 20, and the average burger may have the meat from 1,000 different cows. Now,
And it has ammonia.
I grew
It
up
has
in that
ammonia in it.
business.
But-
My family was in the slaughterhouse business.
Really?
In the meat business, yeah.
my
They're
dad used to
not-
be a
they're not
butcher.
there anymore.
No, they're not. It's
They're not
all
there anymore.
factory farming.
But you know what
and
the
factory
answer is to all
slaughterhouse.
of this? Go to the deli, get some good kosher chopped chicken liver.
Or organic. Buy organic.
Yeah, it's not. They don't do
Buy
that.
free
They don't
range.
do that to them, and it's close enough to foie gras.
But
It's all
even,
good.
even then, you don't even know. Like, if I want to go buy, eggs from cage-free chickens or cage-free hens to eat, well, films like The Future of Food points out that many of these cage-free hens are in, ankle deep in feces,
Yeah.
in barns. They never see the daylight. They're not in a cage, but they're just in a big prison, like it's Midnight Express for barnyard fowl. It's great to talk about these problems, but it comes back to the question of individual liberty.
Well, and I
Where does the
think,
government
too-
come in with regulating these, and does the government have a responsibility to educate the people about how disproportionately removed from our food we are?
Well, I know, and just to wrap up the other point, I mean, it's easy for us to say, yeah, go buy organic, but I mean, for a lot of families, that's
They
just
can't.
not
The
affordable.
99-cent menu is there for them.
And what does it say about our policies that we're, making a Big Mac extra value meal less expensive than a head of broccoli? But no, I mean,
Don't say broccoli.
The
sore
Scalia hang-up?
subject here.
Well, it's true, and it's interesting because the ancient Egyptian pyramids were built by slaves. Our American food pyramid has been built by lobbyists. And we don't have a really accurate depiction of what our food intake should be. And likewise, I don't really know how we're going to be able to promote the general welfare by letting people know what the crap they're pumping into
Yeah,
their
but
bodies
even
is.
in economic times like this, even people who are of a lower economic stature can still buy healthy foods, even if you're on food stamps. Because you can't use them for cigarettes, you can't use them for certain things, but you can still buy things that, if not organic, that are certainly not cruel.
True, but it's very tough for poor people to eat like Adam and Eve did in the garden.
They don't
Eden.
have to eat like Adam and Eve, but they can eat healthier.
We do have to move on, but I want to have one final comment on bacon. You'd think that two religions with such a fierce hatred of bacon would find more things to agree about. We want to know what you think, so write your comments down below. There's some very hideous comments on Facebook, by the way. People who say geese are ugly, foie gras tastes good. So if you think that, if you're an insensitive dick, we want to know. Please, give us your comments. We'll be right back.
want your address.
Welcome back to The Point. Okay, for our last subject, it's the one we began the show with. This point takes us to the great state of Texas, where the state GOP has ratified a party platform filled with lots of things that the far right loves on their Christmas list, including a return to the gold standard, go Ron Paul, a ban on most taxes, including corporate and corporate taxes, because they've had it tough for a long time, privatizing Social Security, eliminating the EPA, Department of Energy, and Department of Education. That's 3, Governor Perry. But the plank caught a lot of flack for the paragraph I began the show reading. I'm going to repeat it now at double caffeinated speed. We oppose the teaching of higher order thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and similar programs that are simply a relabel of outcome-based education, which focus on behavior modification and have the purpose of challenging a student's fixed beliefs and undermining parental authority. Now again, they have since retracted this paragraph on critical thinking, but that will still officially be a part of the platform until 2014. So Alexis, I want to go to you first. When I first heard this platform and I heard they want to take away critical thinking but add corporal punishment, I thought, Texas GOP wants to brainwash your kids and they want to beat your kids. I want to know what's going on here. They're retracting it, but did they mean it? Does the Texas GOP really want to ban critical thinking? And would conservatives ever stand for that?
I would absolutely hope not. And they did go on record saying that it was a mistake, but
Yeah, that whole paragraph was a mistake.
I mean,
It wasn't a mistake.
I mean,
putting an apostrophe in the wrong place is a mistake.
luckily I lived in
mistake.
Austin, Texas for 6 years. But Austin's the good part of Texas.
I
That's what
love
everyone
Austin.
there. That's what everyone there
If
says.
Texas
But,
secedes, we're keeping it.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, what is there to say to that?
Well, I mean, this is the dark side of the right. You know, we talk about the dark side of the left, I guess, which I guess is anarchists. But here on the right, this is, to me, when you hear liberals screaming about fascism and that they want people to be serfs, I think it's because of things like this. And I actually think, at the top of the show, I gave the state GOP credit for being honest. Yes, critical thinking skills education does undermine parental authority. They're completely right. That's the point.
I disagree.
Tell me.
I don't think it undermines parental authority whatsoever. I think it depends on how you raise your child. I have no children of my own, but I did teach pre-kindergarten for a long time, and I've worked in social environments for a long time, doing after-school programs, doing homework help, working with at-risk youth, and I'm still doing that. And what it does is it enforces the opportunity to think while that child is being guided in ways that support morality.
But it inherently undermines the notion of authority,
No,
which
it
I don't
does
think
not.
is a bad thing.
I disagree that it undermines authority. I think more than anything else, and the reason I say that is because being in that world for a long time and still being in that world, it's about bringing out things and allowing that discussion to take place. Children need discipline. We all know that. Psychologically, on every level, growing up. So it's a matter of saying, how do I mix and measure authority with giving you the opportunity to think and to grow and guide you in those ways. So it's about guidance. We're growing in a society where parents don't guide their children.
So would you agree with this?
We'll give you an iPhone and we'll give you everything else to distract you from discovering who you are
but
while we go off and do our own thing.
All right, but you don't agree with this. You don't agree with
No,
banning
I don't
critical
agree with
thinking.
it.
I didn't think so.
I think it's insane.
Exactly.
I
Now,
think
Rick-
it's absolutely insane. They wouldn't even have an iPad if they had critical thinking.
course.
We wouldn't have gone to the moon if we had critical thinking.
We wouldn't have tools if we didn't have critical thinking. Rick, is this a matter of wanting the public schools to teach obedience rather than learning?
I think you're overthinking this critically. I do. It almost isn't worthy of discussion. I actually read this article a few days ago, and I really thought it was Borowitz. I thought it was comedy.
Yeah.
The first time I read it, and then I realized it was serious, and I thought, you shouldn't take it seriously. But the fact that there are people out there who would craft such a paragraph, you have to take it seriously.
Exactly. I don't know why you wouldn't. They're out there.
It's disturbing.
And it's not just one or two
but
guys.
they're
This
out
made
there.
it into the party platform.
It's
now,
dangerous.
here's my question. Is this just a red flag to distract from the amount of sheer
No.
crazy that's in there, and you take this
No,
out and it
they
makes the
mean
rest
it.
of it seem sane?
No, they mean it. I wonder why they even took it out, because they do mean it. There's no, as you say, if it was an apostrophe, that's a mistake. This is not a mistake. This is how those people are thinking. I guess they're allowed to. And by the way, my kids think I need discipline.
You do.
I tell most women
And you drink too much
I tell
coffee.
most women that I need it on the first date. Alexis.
Yeah, but you need discipline with a paddle.
Oh, baby, tell me more. Now, here's the thing. This is the rap on the GOP that they're against academia. That they're talking about academic elites, which used to be a good thing. But we've seen this, I remember when I was younger hearing Dan Quayle talk about, academic elites
right.
and don't trust the academics, don't trust the educated folks. I've also heard it from the Khmer Rouge and other charming foreign governments. But is it true, is it fair to say that the GOP is engaged in a war on academia?
I think it's a war in academia. I think they just view, this is all part of the effort to kind of be more involved in the culture. Because I think when you look at how liberal ideology is dispersed, I don't think Republicans or conservatives are very good at using arts or the culture or academia. And I think when they look at, at universities and things like that, that's where they think that's where that message is being disseminated.
Well, yeah, and that's a whole different bubble,
and
too.
I went to the LBJ School of Public Affairs for grad school, and yes, I had professors that were very liberal, but thankfully, I had critical thinking in school, and I'm able to defend my positions. I think that only makes you better.
And in fairness, a large subset of academia is this, liberally oriented bubble that chews up language and spits out jobs. And if you don't believe me, let's have a committee to discuss it for the next 6 months, and we'll have resolutions that only we can understand in academic speak. So yes, I get the rap on academia, but doesn't this just? Is there any way that this helps the GOP?
There is an upside to this. I
Please.
really do think there is. Look, you have people like Alexis here, who bright, conservative, but with a good brain. This is what conservative thought has always been. You've got something happening in the Republican Party right now, which is nuts. That nuts is going to take them over a cliff. And when it does, these are the people who are going to be there to reform that party, intelligent conservatives.
Well then,
Who throw out the fear-mongering
this helps
and
push
work with
that
critical
over the
thinking.
cliff sooner.
I'd hope so. I think I would probably be called a rhino, but
I think you would too, but
Today
I think
you would be,
I
but
think,
you won't be in
but
3
I
years.
call the new breed of Republicans that are angrier, meaner, dumber, and louder. I call them the illiterati. And I'm gonna shift gears just a little bit because what you said is very resonant. I think that Jeb Bush coming out last month and it taking this tone of bold moderation was his Hail Mary pass to save his family's legacy. Let me explain. When Jeb Bush endorsed Governor Romney, he did it in a letter to a newspaper. He didn't appear with him, didn't do any public appearances, and he came out again 2 weeks ago and talked about how the Republican Party is just pretty much going crazy. And I thought, okay, Jeb is betting hardcore that Mitt's going to hit a brick wall, and Mitt tacking so far to the right is he's doubling
gonna
down
end
that
it.
it's not going to work.
That's right.
And when 2016 comes, Jeb Bush steps forward as George Bush's wise older son or younger son, who is going to be the sane face of the new Republican
I think
brand
you're
of
exactly
moderation.
right.
Any
I can't
truth?
tell you how many people I've heard this from, that this whole primary thing was a conspiracy to set him up for 2016.
Really?
And
Yeah,
you can't
I
call
can't
Jeb
tell-
Bush
I
a
can't
rhino.
tell you.
You just can't.
No, you
You
can't.
cannot call this
Well,
man
some
a
would
rhino.
try.
He is very conservative in every possible way.
I agree, but I find that
But
fascinating.
he's
'Cause
rational.
A lot of liberals said this about the John Kerry nomination, that John Kerry's nomination was a plot by the Clintons to throw the fight so they'd
Yeah.
have a clear playing field in 2008. Are you really hearing folks say that Jeb Bush, aside from salvaging the brand name, which was destroyed by his brother, is this his play to present himself early as the sane, non-Chris Christie moderate?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it from a few friends. I mean, this is by no means like expert
Is this
opinion.
secret
but
I want to
no,
see your
I
data.
mean-
I want to see your data. Alexis.
Yeah, is this secret
No,
code
but I
stuff?
mean, no, I have heard from people like, oh wow, this is really going to work out well for Jeb Bush come 2016. But I mean, it would be great. I would love to see him run because I think, I mean, I like his positions on education, on immigration, and he does present that more of a moderate tone that I think is missing.
You guys
right
have a
now.
very deep bench for 2016. I think if
Yes,
you had
they
to bet
do.
money today, you got to bet on the Republicans.
No,
in
both
4
sides do, in
years.
fairness, because you've got Mrs. Clinton, you've got
She won't
hopefully
run.
Senator Elizabeth Warren. Oh, I don't know about that.
won't
It
run.
certainly seems like her husband's planning on it.
Yeah, but I don't think she is.
All right, well, let me throw you my theory then. My theory is that Rupert Murdoch wants Barack Obama to be reelected because he came out this weekend and was tweeting. Anytime they let Rupert do his own tweeting, wonderful things happen. And one of the things was he said that Scientology was a creepy cult.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tomcat, I didn't say it. They did. I would never make fun of Scientology, and neither would my beard wife.
And could be evil.
Right, and it could be evil.
Could be evil.
But the other thing he said was that he had met Romney, and that if Romney was going to go up against O's Chicago team, that he had to get better advisors and get some pros in there. And of course, a couple days later, Eric Fernstrom tells the truth and gets screamed at. Fox News began as the Hate Clinton Network. And then they spent 6 years as the Bush is Great Network. Then they spent 2 years as the Defend Bush Network. Now they've had 3 successful and lucrative years as the Hate Obama Network.
Right.
The week Barack Obama was inaugurated, Hannity and O'Reilly were given 4-year deals. Do you think Rupert Murdoch wants to spend the next 4 years? Do you think Roger Ailes wants to be the Defend
so on
Romney
the money.
Network for the next 4 years?
Thank you.
I mean, I definitely think we'd be. I mean, look at the Obamacare decision. Look how good for business that's been for conservatives. I mean, 4.2 million in a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, and hate is
So-
good business.
I mean, I don't
for Rupert.
I don't
gotta
think it's
tell you what a patriot I am. As a liberal voice on Fox News, do you know how good it would be for me personally if Obama loses?
Oh, look at me. If Mitt Romney's president, I'm going to buy a boat. I'm a political comedian. I
mean,
Obama's our first non-buffoon
they-
president in the
they-
generation. He's so hard to make fun of.
They're going to need attack dogs like crazy because
Yes.
when you have to go on defense, it ain't good for ratings.
Exactly. And that's what a Romney presidency threatens to the Fox News brand.
Terrible for Fox. You can see it in their ratings.
And they hate him, right? Come on, let's talk seriously. We have a wonderful, brilliant
I'm a little bit
conservative here
biased
with
because
us.
I did work for Rudy Giuliani.
Another
presidential campaign,
who-
so we
another
didn't-
moderate Republican who was punished for it.
Yeah.
So I don't really have good feelings towards Romney, but I mean, I
understand.
don't. I mean.
Nor do most. And I
mean,
actually.
I don't think it's like a big conspiracy, but I mean, I definitely don't think it would hurt their bottom line if Obama was reelected.
I don't think so at all, and I think that's half the plan. And but however, that being said, 6 states will decide this election. And
that makes dollars and cents.
And it's going to be a lot of anti-Obama ads poured through Citizens United.
Don't you wish you owned a
into those 6
TV
states.
station in one of those 6 states?
Oh my God, can you imagine?
And unfortunately, we don't have critical enough thinking with our young people on a positive side and on an illuminated side enough to be the judges in their own decision making when it comes to voting and having information.
Then let me finish out this segment, since we're talking about moderation and their hopes for the Republican ticket. Ask you guys, who do you think Governor Romney's running mate should be or will be? And I'd like to start with you, Alexis.
I'm going to go out and throw out Rob Portman's name. I think he's well respected in the Senate. I think he's got a great record on immigration. He's actually done more for immigration reform than I think a lot of Democrats have, which I don't think a lot of people know that about him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's the nominee.
And it's a huge swing state, and charisma-wise, he makes Mitt Romney look like Lil Wayne.
I'm right there with you. It could have been Tim Pawlenty. He said too many things that have irritated Romney. I absolutely agree it will be Senator Portman. However, it will not help him carry Ohio.
No, it won't. And I think Tim Pawlenty got his reward by quitting, going to work for Romney, and having Romney pay off all of his campaign debt.
Right.
And I'm going to say Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne, huh?
Don't make me have to change my vote.
Well, there's a lot of good choices out there. I mean, I'd love to see it be Sarah Palin. I'd love to see it be Nikki Haley. I'd love to see it be Condoleezza Rice. I'd love to see it be any of these guys. It won't be Chris Christie. They will not have two Northeast moderates, although Christie will run for president in 2016.
And Christie would hog the stage.
Stop. Everyone I talk to says it's not going to be Rubio. I think the smart choice is someone that'll never be the guy that would help Mitt Romney with the evangelicals who despise him, and that's Mike Huckabee. But however, Mike Huckabee has a very cushy job at Fox, and Mike Huckabee hates Mitt Romney. But I do think that ticket could smash.
I'll throw in
Obama
one
back.
sleeper name.
Please.
John Thune.
John Thune should have run for president.
He should have.
And
He
I
would
bet
have
he's
got
kicking
it. I
himself for
agree.
not doing it.
I agree.
Okay, we want to know what y'all think. We've covered a lot of areas here, so please let us know. Comment below. We're out of time. We don't have any more throwaways. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to look at me. Cenk won't let us have prompters, so I'm analog. So I want to go around the panel and just ask people where people can find you, how we can follow you, and if you have any final thoughts, starting with my love, my passion, Deborah Wilson.
It's been a pleasure to be here, first of all. Thank you very much for letting me participate. And you can find me pretty much on Facebook, because I'm still very much bohemian.
Yes.
In my approach to things. I do spiritual counseling, I do spiritual life coaching, I am everybody's alter Negro. So I am always open on Facebook. So you can find me on Facebook, Debra, last name Wilson, Wilson.
Years trying to drag her into the internet, and I'm so glad you're finally there.
Yes. I've been doing some really good work there. I'm like I said, everything is grassroots for me. I do everything from volunteering at animal shelters to working with at-risk youth and after-school programs. So my thing is, when it comes to the politics, I'll leave it to the pundits, I'll leave it to those that really do the critical thinking. And for me, I'm here to raise the conscious vibration so that people can live every day a little bit more joyously.
Beautiful. Mr. Rick Ungar.
Well, since I'm not open Negro, you'll have to...
I'm your alter Negro. I'm your alter Negro.
You'll have to find me at Fox.com, where you can find me every day, and Saturday mornings, 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox News, Forbes on Fox, and at various times throughout the week in all kinds of places.
Brilliant. And Alexis?
Simple, you can find me at PJTV.com or on Twitter at AlexisPJTV.
Fantastic. I can be found at johnfugelsang.com, at John Fugelsang on Twitter, the John Fugelsang page on Facebook. And I'm also going to be starting a new tour this coming weekend, Friday the 6th, with Hal Sparks. We're doing the Politics, Sex, and Religion Tour. It's everything you can't talk about at the dinner table. So please follow the PSR tour on Twitter and come see us when we come to your town. I want to thank all of you for being here. It's an immense pleasure. I always love doing The Point, but to have a panel this smart, this balanced, and this just flat out dynamite sexy is a special honor. Thank you all for watching. Please give us your comments beneath. I'm John Fugelsang, and we'll see you next time. This is Das Point.